I'll never forget the day my world shattered. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon, the kind where the sun filters lazily through the curtains and the house hums with a deceptive peace. I'd come home early from a meeting that wrapped up sooner than expected, my arms full of grocery bags for the dinner I planned, a celebration of sorts for Mark's recent promotion. The house smelled faintly of lavender from the candles I'd lit the night before, and I remember thinking how perfect everything felt. That was the last moment I'd ever feel that way. As I climbed the stairs, I heard it, a muffled laugh, soft and intimate, followed by a voice I knew too well. My heart stuttered, but my feet kept moving, drawn by some masochistic curiosity I couldn't name. The bedroom door was ajar, just enough for me to see them before they saw me. There was Mark, my husband of 12 years, tangled in our sheets with Rebecca and Jenna, my two closest friends since college. The three of them were a mess of limbs and whispers, oblivious of the fact that I stood there, frozen, watching the life I'd built crumble in real time. Rebecca's dark hair spilled over the pillow I'd picked out at a flea market years ago, and Jenna's familiar giggle, God, that sound I'd once loved, cut through me like a blade. Mark's hands, the ones that held mine through every storm, were tracing paths on their skin I'd never imagined he'd explore. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, the grocery bag slipping from my arms, apples rolling across the hardwood floor with a dull thud. The sound finally caught their attention, and I'll never forget the way Mark's face went from bliss to panic, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Rebecca scrambled for the blanket, her eyes wide with guilt, while Jenna just stared at me, her expression a mix of defiance and shame. I didn't say a word. I turned and walked out, leaving them to their mess. Downstairs, I sat on the couch, the one we bought together after saving for months, and let the silence settle over me. Shock gave way to a strange, eerie calm. I thought about the years I'd poured into this marriage, into this home, into those friendships. 12 years with Mark, countless late-night talks with Rebecca about her dreams, endless coffee dates with Jenna, where we'd laughed until we cried. I'd built my life around them, brick by brick, and now I saw the cracks I'd ignored, the late nights Mark claimed were work, the way Rebecca avoided my gaze lately, Jenna's sudden interest in Mark's business ventures. It wasn't rage that hit me then, it was clarity. I wasn't going to let this destroy me. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with a glass of wine I barely touched, my mind racing. I wasn't going to be the weeping wife they expected. No, I'd be smarter than that. I started planning. First, I needed proof, something concrete to hold over them. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through old texts, looking for anything suspicious. Then I remembered the security camera in the hallway, the one Mark had installed last year after a break-in down the street. I logged into the app, my hands trembling, and there it was, footage from that afternoon, clear as day. Their voices, their laughter, their betrayal, all captured in grainy black and white. I saved it to a USB drive and hid it in the back of my desk drawer. But that was just the beginning. Over the next few days, I played the part of the oblivious wife, letting Mark think I was too broken to fight back. He stammered through excuses, business meetings, exhaustion, anything to avoid the truth, while I nodded and smiled, biding my time. Meanwhile, I dug deeper. I went through his laptop when he was in the shower, finding emails about a shell company he'd never mentioned, bank statements showing transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. Then I turned to Rebecca and Jenna. A quick search online revealed Rebecca's boutique had been flagged for tax evasion, and Jenna's consulting firm was tied to some shady deals I couldn't quite unravel yet. It wasn't just infidelity. It was a web of deceit, and I was caught in the middle. I knew I couldn't do this alone. I left the house one morning with nothing but a suitcase and checked into a hotel, then called a lawyer I'd found to a friend, someone sharp, discreet, and ruthless. I hired a private investigator, too, a grizzled guy named Tom, who didn't flinch when I handed him the USB drive and told him what I found. "Give me a week," he said, and I trusted him. While he worked, I started documenting everything, screenshots, receipts, anything I could use in court. Mark called me nonstop, leaving voicemails that ranged from pleading to furious. But I didn't answer. Rebecca and Jenna texted too, their messages dripping with fake apologies I didn't bother reading. Tom came through faster than I expected. He sat me down in a diner booth, sliding a folder across the table. Inside were photos of Mark meeting with shady-looking men in parking lots, financial records linking his shell company to offshore accounts, and proof that Rebecca and Jenna weren't on it, laundering money through their businesses. It was worse than I'd imagined, but it was exactly what I needed. Armed with this, I told my lawyer to file for divorce and freeze our joint accounts. I wasn't just leaving Mark. I was going to take everything he cared about down with him. They didn't see it coming. Mark tried to turn our friends against me, painted me as unstable, while Rebecca and Jenna spread whispers about my overreaction. But I was one step ahead. I contacted Mark's biggest clients, the ones he bragged about landing, and sent them anonymous tips about his financial misconduct, enough to make them dig deeper. I tipped off the IRS about Rebecca's boutique and Jenna's firm, watching from afar as their world started to unravel. They thought they could dismantle my life, but I was dismantling theirs. The final blow came during one of Mark's precious business meetings. I'd gotten word from Tom about the date and time, and I showed up unannounced, my lawyer at my side. Mark was mid-presentation, all charm and confidence. When I walked in, the room went silent as I held up a stack of papers, copies of the evidence I gathered, and started talking. I laid it all out. The shell company, the illegal transfers, the way he'd used Rebecca and Jenna to cover his tracks. His colleague stared, mouse agape, as his face turned red, then white. "You're done, Mark," I said, my voice steady. "You gambled with the wrong person." I left him there, humiliated, his career in ruins. The divorce was brutal, but swift. I kept the house. Our house, the one I'd made a home, and my business, which I'd built from scratch before Mark ever came along. He got nothing but legal bills and a reputation in tatters. Rebecca's boutique shut down under investigation, and Jenna's firm collapsed when her clients bailed. They faced consequences I didn't need to orchestrate. The truth did that for me. A year later, I stood in my kitchen, sunlight streaming through the windows, my son playing in the yard. I'd rebuilt my life, piece by piece, shedding the weight of the betrayal. I'd learned to trust myself, to rely on my own strength, and that was worth more than anything they'd taken. Looking back, I saw the lessons etched into every moment of that nightmare. How betrayal could break you, but only if you let it. I didn't. I rose from it, stronger, freer, and whole. And that, I realized, was my victory.